Ruby, and that's what we're going to be doing in this movie. Ruby is a programming language. It was created by Yukihiro Matsumoto in 1995. So even though there's a lot of interest and excitement about Ruby on Rails now, Ruby has actually been around for a long time. It's Rails that has really adapted it for the web and made it exciting. Ruby has a lot of similarities to other languages. It's similar to Perl, Smalltalk, Python, and Lisp. And if you've ever worked with any of these other languages for web design or other things, you'll recognize the syntax and it'll look familiar to you. But Ruby is still definitely different in its own thing. The fact that it's similar to Perl is notable, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've actually heard that the reason that the programming language is called Ruby is because Perl is the birthstone of June, and Ruby is the birthstone of July. Like I said, I don't know if that's true, but it certainly seems to make sense because Ruby probably bears the closest similarity to Perl out of all of those languages. Ruby is not just for developing web applications, and that's an important thing to remember. Ruby is like C++ or a lot of programming languages, can be used for a wide variety of purposes. You could write a whole word processor in Ruby if you wanted to. But what we're interested in is web applications, and that's where the Rails part is going to come in. But why Ruby? Why do we want to use Ruby for these web applications? And that's the reason why Ruby is so well suited for it is because Ruby is object-oriented. And we'll start to appreciate the power of what that is as we go further along. You may have heard the term object-oriented before and not really understand what it means. So let's look at a definition. Object-oriented programming, which is sometimes just abbreviated as OOP, is programming a collection of individual units which can each do their own processing and also interact with each other. So just take a second and think about what that means, that we're going to just program individual bits of code, each of which can do their own processing, but they also can interact with each other. And that's going to be different from simply writing functions and subroutines which get called from our code. And because each of these objects has a specific role to play, it's going to be easier to maintain our code and also to add features later. Now that we have an understanding of what Ruby is, and we see that it's a programming language, now we need to ask ourselves, what is Rails, and how does Rails adapt Ruby for the web applications that we want to create? And we'll do that in the next movie.